Welcome back to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex, and my co-host Anthony the Great Rivardo. We are here to break down this developing Marc Colombo story and a little bit of Jason Garrett firing rumors. Gotta love it. The bye week is never dull with the Giants. People always manage to scumber up something to talk about, and it's never anything good. It's not like, oh wow, the Giants won 2 games. Daniel Jones hasn't turned the ball over in those 2 games. The offense is actually looking better. The offensive line is improving. Defense is solid. But no, here we are talking about the firing of Marc Colombo, this entire absolute ridiculous story. This is not something you want to see halfway through the year with a new coaching staff. You don't want to see a guy get fired in the middle of the season. It does not look good, right? It doesn't look good no matter how you look at it. And then you have Jason Garrett rumors saying that he could be gone at the end of the 2020 season as well, and they might move on, which is like literally dooming Daniel Jones for eternity of his progression. It just puts you back. This is not what you want. You don't want to hear these type of things. But Anthony, my friend, before we dive into the madness, how are you doing on this fantastic Sunday afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm really, really excited for the t-shirts that we have coming out soon. If you want to mention
cool.
those. The Joe Judge Fan Club t-shirts.
Joe Judge Fan Club t-shirts.
Stay tuned.
We've been working on a cool design. We've been going through a couple cool designs, and I think we finally came to one. So we're going to be doing some giveaways, and hopefully you guys will support us and buy a couple for your friends, for yourself, for your baby, for your dog. I don't care. Whoever wants to be part of the club, more than welcome. And they're going to be really cool. So we'll have those rolling out probably this week. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We put a lot of effort into it. So I hope you guys enjoy them.
Now let's talk about this loser, Marc Colombo. Okay, Joe Judge is built different. If there was a fist fight, I'm fully confident that Joe Judge would have handled that. What do you think? Would he have handled that?
Oh man, it's tough because Marc Colombo's a big son of a gun.
He's like 6'8".
Former NFL. He's a former NFL lineman, man. Joe Judge, he's got the gut. He's got the I guess the mentality to win. But does he have the fist? Does he have that agile?
He's
Creed?
built different.
Is he like Michael B. Jordan Creed style, beating the crap out of people?
Totally.
You think he is?
I think he's more Christian Bale Batman. Because he looks like Christian Bale. I've been saying this for a minute.
But he rolls up in the Batmobile too.
Right, yeah. He hops out of the Batmobile. He's got the
and Columbo's
like
the Sandman.
Yeah. That's a totally different universe with a totally different supervillain. That's Spider-Man.
Yeah,
bro.
but if we're just shifting through from Creed to Batman, we might as well go Sandman, Spider-Man. Joe Judge is like Spider-Man. You never know when he's going to save the old lady on the corner about to get hit by a car. You never know. He's there. Joe Judge is there. That's part of why we love him. He's always shows up. He's basically a superhero right now for the way he's turned this team around. But then you have the Marc Colombo firing, and I want to talk about that because it's a little concerning that you have to fire a coach in the middle of a season. And then you have Michael Silver, who created a thread on Twitter. This was interesting. So 13 years plus at Sports Illustrated. 6as.com. I don't even know what that even means. His literal bio says unfollow me, so I'm already unwilling to trust him. But then you have this whole thread, right? As Kim Jones Sports reported, the incident that led to the abrupt firing of Giants OL coach Marc Colombo did involve Colombo calling Joe Judge a very dirty name, probably an eagle, not sure. However, tensions began weeks later after an incident on the practice field. According to a witness, Judge corrected the technique of Nick Gates, totally fine, he's the head coach, during a practice several weeks ago, and Colombo disagreed with the correction. That's like your boss. That's like, let's say you're a manager, right? And you're teaching someone how to make a sale. And your manager, the CEO of the company, walks up to you and says, no, you should try doing it this way. You don't talk back to your freaking CEO. You say, okay, sir, thanks for the tip. Go on your day. Go on your merry way. You don't fight with the head coach. Colombo should know this. And this is, coming from a guy who was with Dallas and had the best offensive line in the entire league, was not working with rookies. But then again, he was reportedly very popular with his players. But coming to a team that does not have an established offensive line, we're sitting here now where does it go from here? Dave DeGuglielmo's here now, and he's taking over for Colombo. But Mike Silver goes on to say that Joe Judge, I guess, called out Andrew Thomas for his lack of production, his efficiency during film, and Colombo kind of took offense to this, and he was very vocal the past couple of weeks, Colombo, about Andrew Thomas's weaknesses and what he was doing wrong. He was overshooting his assignments. His punches were too quick, false steps. These are all things he actually publicly stated. But Colombo was very reluctant to accept the help of DeGuglielmo because Joe Judge wanted to bring him in, right? They were actually between the two of them before the season started who to hire an offensive line coach. And then they brought DeGuglielmo in, who has a very, very good history in some places, but he's also known to be pretty rash, right, Anthony? He's known to be kind of a tough guy.
Yeah, he's got a pretty standoffish personality. He butts heads with people. I think that's kind of part of the reason that he's been on so many teams over the years. He really has not been able to find the long-term home, and I think a lot of that is because of his personality. He can be kind of a hard ass. And I don't know, I thought that's what Marc Colombo was, but I guess Marc Colombo is really more one of the guys. And, with a young group of guys like we have, maybe they do need a hard ass to straighten them out and make sure that they're getting their technique right. I don't know, though. It's weird because, he refuses to have a consultant in Dave DeGuglielmo, right? But when Marc Colombo was in Dallas, he was a consultant. Like, he was an assistant offensive line coach for a while. He was only the offensive line coach there for like a year or two. And then he came over here. So he's not like... It's not like working with somebody is foreign to him. He's done it. And he was actually the guy that somebody was working with for a while, right? Like, he was the guy that they brought in to help out another guy. So it's kind of interesting and surprising that he would be so against having someone come in and help him. I would think that, he would be okay with that, but apparently not.
Yeah. Look. Okay, so I think there's a big part we're leaving out here, and it is that this feud apparently had been going on for a couple weeks, right?
Right.
So the second Joe Judge says, we're bringing in someone to help you, Colombo says, you must have to assume I'm being fired. I'm gone. Like, if you bring in somebody else to help them after the head coach and the offensive line coach are feuding, there's a problem there. And they fired him because they thought it was going to get physical, right? So whatever Colombo said to him was really bad. Whatever went on there was really bad. So that means that the second they brought in Dave DeGuglielmo, that was not an assistant. He's a proven offensive line coach. He's not helping Colombo. He has more experience than Colombo. That's a replacement hire. That's like, we're going to bring him in and then we're going to fire Colombo and then just make this transition easy. And it pretty much worked out that way because Colombo was like, I'm not working with somebody who's literally coming here to take my job. They're basically going to say, this is how it works. Let's say Colombo accepts DeGuglielmo, the offensive line improves drastically, and they're like, okay, let's just fire Colombo. It was going to happen either way. So it's just like, it was very obvious what the Giants were trying to do here. You look at it pretty logically, and it's like they were going to move on from Colombo, and what he said to Joe Judge was a fireable offense. You can't say that to the head coach, and it's a really bad look right now for this coaching staff to have something like that happen after half a season. And, I think it was the right decision for upper management because apparently Joe Judge wasn't the one that fired him. The upper management said, we're going to get rid of him before this gets physical. And I don't think Joe Judge was going to fire him. Maybe it was upper management's decision. But they actually had security go and escort him out instead of Joe Judge firing him. So that was I kind of see that as a little bit disrespectful. If I was Colombo, I'd feel disrespected. If they had the security come and escort me out and just be like, you're fired, I would want someone to tell me straight up like a man.
I get that, and I think that Judge wanted to go and fire him himself, and then they just didn't let him,
Maybe.
And you have to think,
possible.
like, part of that could be COVID protocols. Maybe they just didn't want each other getting in each other's faces, even if they didn't think that there was going to be a fist fight, they just didn't want them to get, to the point where they would be in such close contact, And I assume it would be a little awkward to try and fire somebody from, like, 6 to 10 feet away anyway. So, and especially if this guy is not going to be happy about it. So,
He's
I don't
a
know.
hothead too. So,
if he was going to be pissed and they felt like he might threaten Joe Judge, then yeah, Joe Judge he's built different. He would have eaten those punches and then returned them. But at the same time, no one should lay a hand on Joe Judge, the head coach of the New York Giants. So, security had to get involved, I guess. But I'm really more interested to hear your thoughts on the second half of Mike Silver's report. Did you call this a report or did you just call it a Twitter thread, right? Because how much of this is actually based in factuality? I don't know.
Twitter thread, there's been a lot of different things that have
Twitter
come
thread
out, but
speculation.
I can read the last 4 of them if you want me to.
Well, I want to talk about his personality style has been off-putting to some, according to Mike Silver.
Okay.
And Patriots assistants. He has exuded an alarming aura of haughtiness, which is like arrogance, thinking that you're better than everybody. And then talking about how him and some of his ex-New England assistants that he brought over here were like bashing on Tom Brady and all of this stuff and thinking that they have the same type of offense that he had in New England last year. Like basically like making Joe Judge out to be this big narcissistic douchebag. Like I don't really understand because it doesn't seem like that lines up with any other story that we've been given from about Joe Judge at all throughout this whole year. It seems like everything has been Joe Judge has been like a really good team first coach, and he's been trying to eliminate distractions. I don't really understand where this random report is coming from that he's now exuding an alarming aura of haughtiness. And that's like funny, dude. Exuding an alarming aura of haughtiness. Alarming, like
That's such a
I think
weird
I think this is such a
statement.
bogus and ridiculous report. I don't believe it. I do believe the like other aspects of it about the Colombo stuff, but I do feel like, and Art Stapleton said this. He said that he thinks this is sour grapes. I think that Colombo is in Michael Silver's ear and is, very upset about the way that the firing went down, and he's spewing some
Yep.
hot garbage into
Oh, for
Silver's
sure.
ear,
This
and
is
Silver's tweeting.
That
it.
is exactly what this is, because look at it realistically. This team is 3-7. They have not given up. The coaching staff, it's been only a couple of months since they've been together. They're actually making some serious progress in putting together a successful team. Why on earth would they try and self-destruct after just a couple months? You're talking about Bill. He's coming from a Bill Belichick coaching tree. Nick Saban. These guys are hard asses, man. They are just like him, and that's what it takes to succeed, right? In the NFL, you can't be Pat Shurmur letting everyone run rampant, or Ben McAdoo letting OBJ run the team. You have to control your players, control your coaches, because everyone has their own personality. Good managers, and I've been in this position. I've been a manager before. Good managers know how to coach and manage everybody individually. They don't use the same style for everybody. Everybody has to be treated their own way because everyone's personality can react differently to certain things. I think what Joe Judge is doing is he's laying the ground of consequences. So there's a foundation there that if you do something wrong, it doesn't matter who you are, you're being, you're open to punishment. You're going to be punished if you do something. And that means Joe Judge too. He's also taking responsibility and accountability for some of those mistakes, right? And that's what you have to be doing as a head coach. You can't blame other people. He hasn't blamed anyone but himself and the team as a whole. He's never said, this person did that person did this. He said, we have to get better. We have to do a better job. I have to do a better job. What he's telling us is that this is a team mentality. This is not about him, and we've seen that. This is the most I've seen the Giants look like a team in 4 years. Probably longer. I don't even count that 2016 season, right? That was really just a 5 free agent, 5-year max deals, Jerry Reese plugging holes and hoping for the best. Right, that was a one and done. This is the first time I've seen the Giants actually act like a team in quite some time, and that's because of Joe Judge. That's because of those rules he's put in place. That's because no one's walking over the coaching staff and making the locker room their own, like OBJ or even Janoris Jenkins, like self-sabotaging. We're watching players like Blake Martinez, Bradbury play their best football because of schematics. The offense is finally looking at their part. Daniel Jones is finally getting rid of those turnovers. He's on pace for less than half of the number of fumbles he did last year. So I don't want to hear that Joe Judge is the problem here, because this is a winning team. Like, they're a winning team with a record that does not indicate how good they are. And that is all we've been asking for, and ownership sees that. So this is just a non-story because Joe Judge isn't going anywhere. And the bigger question is, why are there rumors now that Jason Garrett could be fired? And is that connected to Colombo in any way?
I definitely think it's at least partially connected. I think there's definitely some sort of connection there, right? Because of the turmoil that we're hearing about, that there are like some rumors that maybe some of the offensive linemen aren't totally happy with what transpired. There's definitely some rumors that the rest of the coaching staff isn't totally happy about what transpired. And maybe there is some chance that there's some truth to the haughtiness, the alarming haughtiness report. I don't think so, but I do think that there is like a possibility of Garrett getting fired, but I don't think it's a likelihood. I think what's got to happen is the offense reverts to how it was the first 4 weeks of the season. We all remember how painful it was to watch that offense in the beginning of the season, right? We were talking about how Jason Garrett needed to be fired back then. We were averaging 11
It was a lot of offensive line, though. It was a lot of offensive line. Marc Colombo was manning the worst offensive line in pass protection in the NFL, and we're supposed to consider his opinion better than anyone else's. This is a disgruntled employee.
Okay.
This is what happens.
Yeah, but if you
like
want to put all of the blame on the offensive line, You just can't do that, man. Like, the play calling by Jason Garrett was really bad in the beginning of
That's
the
fair.
season. We can all agree with that. Like, he was struggling. He did not look like a good offensive coordinator. We were all disappointed. And regardless of the offensive line, they were averaging 11.8 points through the first like 4 or 5 weeks or something. Like, that is
It was
horrific.
terrible.
That is
Terrible.
really, really bad. And if the offense is somehow going to revert back to that performance level, then yeah, he should be fired. I don't think it will, though. I think it will continue to trend upwards as it
I
has
think
the
so
past
too.
few weeks, because this offense has looked really good the past few weeks. And I think a lot of that has been Daniel Jones taking a step forward and really turning a corner and playing a lot better. I think that's been a big part of it. But then the other part of it, I think, has been Jason Garrett significantly improving his offensive play calling. I've seen a lot more play action, a lot more zone reads, a lot more pre-snap motion, just a lot more creativity, just a much better offense from Jason Garrett. He's really adapted. I think he started to feel like maybe his seat was heating
I
up
think
and
so
maybe he
too.
was kind of on the hot seat and he needed to make an improvement. And he has. It's been a lot better. But if for some reason it starts to revert backwards again, and it starts to trend downward, and this offense really starts to struggle towards this last portion of the season after we get out of this bye week. We have how many games? 6 games left, right? If those
Hmm.
final 6 games are a struggle, 6 or 7 games, I think. If those final 6, 7 games are a struggle, and the offense just can't get anything going, then yeah, we can move on from Jason Garrett. And me personally, I am not worried about stunning Daniel Jones's development. And here's why. Look around the league. Look at a guy like Jared Goff, right? He was in that terrible offense. And it's like, oh man, we're really going to fire the offensive coordinator, have the second-year quarterback relearn a whole new offense. Okay, they did it. Then Sean McVay came in. He's a brilliant offensive mind. The scheme was so good and so easy for him to learn that he found instant success. If the Giants can find a good offensive coordinator, a forward-thinking, progressive offensive coordinator that simplifies the offense and just makes things really easy on Daniel Jones, then that's not going to hurt him. That will only benefit him. It's all about making the right hiring, though. You know, if
Hmm.
they make the wrong
Easier said than
hiring,
done.
yeah, he'll be right. But if they make the wrong hiring, then of course Daniel Jones will be hurt by that. But that's you can literally say that maybe he's been hurt by this because this was the wrong hiring, right? So
Yeah, you can
and
make the
that's with
argument.
everything, you know. That's every single time you make a hiring. If it's the right hiring, they will succeed. If it's the wrong hiring, they won't succeed. So I'm not really worried about that, you know.
Yeah.
I trust Joe Judge. I trust the Giants. If for some reason we do move on from Jason Garrett at the end of the season, I'm just gonna have to trust them to make the right hiring. And I'm not worried about Daniel Jones. I think that he's a smart quarterback. I think that he will learn the offense and he will pick up on it and he will, you know, if it's a
Yeah.
better offensive scheme than the one we have, he will be a better player because of it.
Well, look, okay. When it comes to Jason Garrett, these rumors that are coming up, they're saying that some of the coaches, and I'll read you exactly what Jason LaConfora said. He says, sources said there have been friction and turmoil within other aspects of that staff as well, with offensive coordinator Jason Garrett under scrutiny and a change at that key staff position, a very real possibility in 2021. You could make that argument with anybody, right? Anybody except for Patrick Graham and probably the special teams coach. Like, it really, when it comes to Jason Garrett, even Freddie Kitchens could be on the block. He's done
Oh,
an
I actually
okay
think he
job at
should
best.
be. I think he
Hmm.
should be because of how poorly Evan Engram has played this season. So
Right, and also
Freddie
Levine
Kitchens should
Toilolo is
have a hot
basically
seat.
an obsolete player.
I don't know
You
why
know,
we ever signed Levine
I don't
Toilolo to
know.
that
That
contract.
was
I don't
a
know
replacement
what
for Rhett
his
Ellison.
purpose is.
It was a
Should have just
replacement for
kept
Rhett
Red
Ellison.
Ellison. Should have just kept
Should
Red
have just kept
Ellison.
Caden Smith and screwed to Levine Toilolo. That was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Just
I
make
want to
Caden
see.
Smith a
I
better
still
player.
want to see more Caden Smith. I still don't think we've seen enough. But
I agree with you. But
whatever.
what I was getting at here is with Jason Garrett, I think that he's made some progress. And, when you turn over offensive coordinators like that, you're not just affecting Daniel Jones, you're affecting the offensive line, the zone scheming, the blocking, the wide receivers, the routes, everything in between, the chemistry, the timing between the receivers and the quarterback. There's a lot that goes into this. It can get better when you make a wildly lucky and great hire like McVay, but that doesn't happen very often. Jason Garrett, what we've seen he established his base concepts, and we saw that because you also have to factor in there's basically 3 rookies on the offensive line and a new position with Nick Gates at center. He lost
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley and Sterling Shepard for the first few weeks. This was an offense that was not ready to play well. They were nowhere close to playing well. And then you have Evan Ingram, who dropped like a ridiculous amount of catches. He It caused some interceptions and turnovers. And the Giants lost 3 games by a combined margin of 6 points. You know, that is just the reality. Like, they were very close to getting over the hump. They just didn't have the offensive talent to do so, and Daniel Jones had not gotten rid of the turnover problems yet. That was a lot on Daniel Jones, too. Can't blame Jason Garrett for some of those mistakes. So what I'm saying here is now, the last 2 weeks, we've seen Garrett get really creative, do a lot of really good things for the Giants, and take advantage of the opportunity. And he probably felt like his seat was getting a little bit warm, which is reasonable because when you're not putting up that many points, you have to assume that you're going to feel that pressure. And I think he's actually answered the call. I think he's done a good job. But like you mentioned, the last 6-7 games of the year, we need to see this progress. We can't see a stagnation on offense. We can't see Jason Garrett just kind of get vanilla with the play calling. They need to continue to get creative. Steal, it's a copycat league. Steal plays from Kansas City. Do those little underneath tight end pitch plays that that you don't expect. Get those wide receiver bubble screens out there and take advantage of these mismatches. It really comes down to Jason Garrett developing and the players reacting to it. And I think that Jason Garrett's done a good job the past few weeks. I don't see why this is a rumor now and it wasn't 5 weeks ago. That's when it should have been more of a rumor.
Yeah, listen, I am the first person that will sing Jason Garrett's praises for the last few weeks. I have been very vocally impressed and excited about the things that he's done the past few weeks. I think this offense has looked seriously improved. And I do think it's weird that we are getting this report now and not weeks ago when the offense was struggling. But a lot of what I think that is bye-week boredom. I think a lot of this is just bye-week boredom, so we need something to talk about. We had the Colombo thing happen, and that was a legitimate thing that happened, but now we're trying to create additional stories to keep building on this.
The New York media does this crap. The New York media, they did it with OBJ. They did it with OBJ. They did it with Ben McAdoo. They did it with Shermer. They do it with every single person during the bye week and on the off season. They always find stuff because it's a money-making market. And when you're creating storylines like this, it's going to create animosity between the fan base and the team and then management. It spills over onto all these things. We've seen it happen time and time again. There's a reason they traded OBJ. There's a reason that he became such a nutcase at one point because he was being completely just villainized by the media. And I think they're trying to do this to Joe Judge right now, and I don't think Judge is going to buy it. He's just going to run over this and steamroll the entire narrative that this is somehow his fault. But the reality is, he tried to correct something. He got into a fight, a verbal argument with Marc Colombo, and you don't do that to your boss. That's just basic stuff. You don't do that to your boss. You don't see Patrick Graham doing that, and his defense has played very poorly on third downs the first half of the season, except for this last 2 weeks. His defense was terrible on third downs. They were collapsing in the fourth quarter. They couldn't finish games. But you didn't see him go after Joe Judge and get into fights with him. That's not what you do as a coach. That's not how you respond to the head coach or upper management. So what Colombo did was basically just shot himself in the back, and then they were like, okay, we're just going to bring in somebody to help you, but really it's just your replacement. And then he freaked out, and then he got himself fired, which was going to happen anyway. Because, again, if you're going to go at Joe Judge, who's the head coach who's already set this foundation of consequences and discipline, you're going to get in trouble. He's treating everybody the same. That's what you want to see. You don't want to see coaches picking favorites. That's what Ben McAdoo with OBJ. He let OBJ run the show, and Shermer too. They let him run the show. They didn't actually implement any consequences, and it showed because players were like, "What the hell, man? He's doing whatever he wants." They can't let Colombo run over Joe Judge, and Judge is sure as hell not going to let that happen. So I think what he did was the right thing, and firing him was he forced himself into that position. In my opinion, Colombo did.
I agree, and I think the best way to think about this is, if a player were to walk up to Joe Judge and scream at him and say the things that he said to Joe Judge, that player would be cut. And if that's a message that he's been sending his team, that you will be cut, if he's sending his players that if you will be cut, if you speak to me this way or if you act this way because we're trying to build a culture, then that same energy needs to be reciprocated to the coaching staff. The coaching staff cannot behave that way if the players can't behave that way. This was a message, not just to the coaching staff, but to the players too. And not just to say, fear me, but to say, I respect you to the players. That's what this is, because he's not going to give the coaching staff a pass just because they're coaches and the players are players, right? He wants respect from everybody, and he will give respect to everybody as long as it's given to him. That's pretty much the message that I got, and I hope that the players also got the same message, because I think that's the message that he was trying to send.
Yeah, and this haughty kind of mentality that Colombo is, secretly telling Michael Silver.
It does not fit within this story.
And look,
It
it doesn't
seems
fit.
like some BS narrative that they're just trying to run
It
with.
does right. It doesn't fit, but you also have to understand that the Giants needed somebody at the top of the food chain to delegate, right? They needed somebody to have some discipline, for somebody to all these guys to listen to follow. They needed a leader. Ben McAdoo and Pat Shermer weren't that. Nobody cared about their opinion. They walked all over them. They didn't do anything that they wanted them to do. They didn't listen to the play calls. They were running into each other on a weekly basis on mesh routes. Like, this is what I'm talking about. The Joe Judge is ironing out the fundamentals, the details. He's demanding excellence, right? When you demand excellence and people don't want to listen to you, you get rid of those people and you replace them with people that will listen. That's really what you do. And like, he's being a leader, and he's being someone that they can actually follow instead of just like disregard opinions from. I think this is totally a non-story in my opinion. They're going to move on from this. We're never going to remember it happened. The offensive line is going to be just fine. It's a business. These guys go through coaches like water. In the NFL, you know, this is what happens in the NFL. People get fired. It is a business. So not surprised. They're gonna adapt. They'll be completely fine, and this will be a story in 2 weeks. That's how I feel.
I completely agree. I agree. I think this is going to blow over. We're going to talk about it now because it's kind of interesting just to see this stuff arise during the bye week boredom. But I think it's going to blow by, and I think everything's going to be fine. And I think that really what Joe Judge is focused on right now is not Jason Garrett's job security for the future. I think he's just focused on beating Cincinnati next week and keeping our team in the playoff hunt. And that's all that we should be focused on. So I'm excited for next week. Pre-game live stream, that's going to be fun. And hopefully we beat those Bengals.
Absolutely. Yep. Hopefully we beat the Bengals, guys. But I hope you enjoyed this little infomercial on Joe Judge and, you know, the fan club and, you know, why we think he's the answer. And this is just a non-story to begin with. But hope you guys enjoyed Football Sunday and your fantasy teams are doing well. And we'll catch you guys in a couple days for another episode leading up to the Cincinnati Bengals matchup. A must-win for us because that's one of the teams that we kind of have to beat to keep our hopes alive in the NFC East. But we're Browns fans today on Sunday to beat the Eagles. And my friends, Fireside Giants crew, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.